But this account paints a very different picture of Jesus. It tells us that Jesus was going from Jericho to Jerusalem. And while Jesus was going from Jericho to Jerusalem, there was a great multitude of people that were following him. Now, I want you to understand what's about to happen in the life of Jesus, because I want to give you some context of what's about to happen when he gets to Jerusalem. So he is going from Jericho to Jerusalem. Now, when Jesus gets to Jerusalem, this is either the day right before Palm Sunday or on Palm Sunday. When Jesus is about to ride into the city of Jerusalem on the donkey, this is Palm Sunday. Jesus is then going to go to the temple. He is going to flip over the tables. He's going to run the money changers out. And it is 7 days before Jesus is to be crucified. The reason I want you to understand this is because I want you to know that Jesus was walking with an intended destination in mind with purpose. Like he wasn't out just for a stroll. Do you know what I'm saying? Like he was going to a place for a reason. So he was busy. And not only was Jesus busy and there was a lot that was about to happen, but there was a great multitude of people that were following him. There were a ton of people. And while Jesus is on the way to Jerusalem, and as he exits Jericho, some say that it was as he's coming in, because it was, anyway, I'm not getting into that. He was leaving, he was going to Jerusalem. There were 2 blind men sitting outside. And when Jesus walks by, they cry out, "Have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David." Now I want you to go here with me for a minute, okay? If you were one of those blind men, how would you have cried out? You see, I think sometimes when we read the Bible, we read it with more reverence than there is in that moment. We forget the humanity of what is happening in these different accounts. Like, we want to read it as if Jesus walks by and the blind men were like, "Have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David." Like, we want to I think that we forget. I mean, how many times have you read that story if you've been in church for any time? Do you think about the way that they cried out? Think about it for you. This is your one shot. You have been sitting outside of the walls of Jericho for Lord knows how long, because that's where beggars went. You're asking for help. You're asking for money. You were relegated outside of the gates, and every day that people walked by, you were begging. You were asking for help. You may have been born blind all of your life, and then all of a sudden, as you're sitting there blind, you hear a ton of people walking. A great multitude, the Bible tells us. And you hear in your blindness that Jesus is with them. That Jesus, you've heard the stories of him healing people. You've heard the stories of raising Lazarus. You've heard all of these different accounts and the things that he has done. And what you think to yourself is, this might be my one shot. This might be my one shot to receive sight. This might be my one shot to be made whole. This may be my one shot to be made well. How would you cry out to him? Would it be this, "Have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David"? Or would you cry out with absolutely everything in you? "Have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David"? And then the crowd, "Shh, you're being too loud. You be a good beggar. Sit over there quietly on the side of the road and we'll flip you a coin into your cup." And then you cry out again, "Have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David." And then all of a sudden you hear, it gets a lot quieter. And what you realize in your blindness is that the multitudes of people have quit walking. And the reason that they have quit walking is because Jesus has stood still at the sound of your cries. And then, moved by compassion, you hear him, What would you have me do for you? Lord, that my eyes would be open. And then by his compassion, he walks over and he touches your eyes, and in that moment, your eyes open. Can you imagine what that must have been like for those guys? To know in the midst of everything, I mean, from that point on, they followed Jesus. Like, can you imagine what it was like when they got to Jerusalem after Jesus had opened their eyes and they see, not only did they see for the first time, but then they get to Jerusalem and Jesus gets on that donkey and rides in, and the people are screaming Hosanna and waving palm branches and throwing their, I mean, like, can you imagine that they would have been like, he stopped for me in all of this, with all of these people. Jesus stopped at my cries. Jesus stopped when I screamed out. Listen to me. Jesus still stops at the sounds of our cries. He still stops. That when you cry out to him, when you call out to him, that he's not too busy for you. That he hasn't overlooked you. That he hasn't forgotten about you. And maybe everyone else in your life, be quiet. Keep it down. Listen, misery loves company, and there will be people in your life that will want to see you not break out of where you are because you validate the hole that they have dug for themselves. Can you imagine that? He still stops. In the midst of all of that chaos, in the midst of the people, Jesus Christ is walking, and he hears it. And he stands still. Some of you need to know that. That right now, in heaven, Jesus Christ is standing still for you. Not for Josh, not for Pastor Keith, not for Pastor Clay, not for Pastor Layton, not for Marie and Ryan, the worship team, not for Pastor Stovall, just for them, for you. And he is listening to your cries. Listen to what Psalm 18:4 says. I love this. You guys aren't going to have this because I added it today. 18:6. It says, in my distress, I called upon the Lord and cried to my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even to his ears. When you cry out, your cries go to the very ears of God. They go to the very ears of Jesus Christ. You are not overlooked. You are not forgotten. You are not on your own. You are a son, you are a daughter of the God of the universe, and God loved you so much, and Jesus loved you so much, that they have been moved to compassion on your behalf. And the beautiful thing is it doesn't end when God hears us. It doesn't end when God hears us. It doesn't end when Jesus hears you. It's not like Jesus stopped and he heard the blind man and he said, come on, guys. He stopped. He heard their cries. What would you have me do for you? So what do you need to cry out to Jesus about? What's going on in your life? What's going on to that thing that maybe you have continually held on to all by yourself? Maybe no one in this room knows it. Maybe no one in your life knows it, but Jesus knows it. And you have not cried out to him. You have been holding on to it. What do you need to cry out about? What emptiness are you struggling with? What brokenness are you struggling with where you are looking at temporary man-made cathedrals to fulfill you? There's a lot of ladies in here right now. And listen to me, sweetheart. You don't need another man. You don't need another guy to validate you. What you need is Jesus Christ. Listen to me, young man. You don't need another woman to make you feel like a man. You don't need another sexual conquest to validate you being a man. I don't give a crap how much you can bench press. You need Jesus. And what you need more than these temporary man-made cathedrals that we build, and listen, we all do it. I'll tell you this, man, one of the things that I continually struggle with in my life, and I had a meeting today with a pastor out in Fernandina that I'm good friends with, that he kind of speaks into my life, is one of the things as a pastor that you struggle with is ministry becomes the cathedral for you. Because it's a very fine line of, am I doing this for you or am I doing this for me? God, am I spending time with you to spend time with you so that you can pour into Josh? Or God, am I spending time with you so hopes that you would give me a sermon to preach? And so without me knowing it, what I did for like the first 4 or 5 years of my ministry, man, is I had made ministry a cathedral. I had my identity in that. That was who I was. I was a preacher. I was a pastor. And then one day, one of our pastors, Pastor Wayne, was taking us through this book called Leadership That Builds People. And it asked this question. It said, if you never took the stage again to preach, would you know who you are? Oh. It was like God backhanded me. Because in that moment, my answer was no. I asked this other question. It said, do you feel like when you preach, it's your job to preach sermons that save people? Oh, yeah, God, I do. It's not your job to save people, Josh. It's my job. It's your job to do what I tell you. See, I had built this man-made cathedral in my life. What are yours? Because here's what I had to do. I had to take this cathedral. I had to come into the presence of God and I had to say, I need you to do something with this. I'm bringing it to you. I am submitting it to you. I am asking you to help me, God, because it's driving me crazy. It's leaving me more empty. And every time that I would preach a sermon, God, I feel like it's got to be the best sermon ever, God, because my identity's wrapped up in this. This is who I am, God. And I had to continually bring it to him. I still have to continually bring it to him. It's a cathedral that I keep having to fight, a cathedral that I keep having to have God help me tear down and keep bringing to him. What's yours? I think that for a lot of us in here that Jesus Christ is looking at you right now and saying, what would you have me do for you? And it's not that Jesus doesn't know it. He just wants you to bring it to him. Those blind men brought their issue to Jesus. There's some of you in here, you need to bring your issues to Jesus. You need to allow Jesus to help you tear down the cathedrals that you have built in your life. And listen, Hebrews 4:15 through 16 says this, for we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weakness, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in a time of need. This is what this is telling us. Jesus went through every temptation that you and I could ever possibly go through. It may have looked different, granted, back then. But Jesus dealt with lust. Jesus dealt with appeal, authority, applause, appetite, all of these different things. I mean, for goodness sake, Satan took him to the top of a temple. I mean, he was tempted one-on-one with the devil, yet he was without sin. So because Jesus understands our weakness, so because Jesus understands what it is to build cathedrals, so because Jesus understands what it is to be tempted and brokenness and all that, because he walked through different things, yet he was the one that was without sin. The Bible tells us that you and I, because of Jesus, are able to boldly approach the throne of grace, the throne of God, and receive grace and mercy when we need it. So there are some of you in here, and what you need to know is that because of what Jesus did, because of what Jesus did on the cross, because of what Jesus walked through, you are able to bring a temporary man